Identification purposes, I'm on the faculty of the University of Maryland and an editor at the BMJ. I have no relevant conflicts of interest. I want to start off by asking a question. Just what problem is this third dose aiming to solve? If we have a pandemic of the unvaccinated, as our public health officials have repeatedly stated, why would a, quote, fully vaccinated person need a third dose? The briefing document suggests the rationale for boosters is waning immunity, but the lowest vaccine efficacy figure mentioned is 83.7%. And last month, FDA approved Pfizer's vaccine stating that efficacy against symptomatic COVID is 91%. Sure, a third dose might nudge up efficacy numbers, but so too might a fourth dose and a fifth dose. Before contemplating the licensure of dose 3, shouldn't FDA first require evidence that the two-dose regimen no longer meets the efficacy bar the agency just weeks ago said it met? If vaccine efficacy is now below 50%, let's see the data. Let's discuss safety. When discussions about a third dose began in July, CDC Deputy Director Dr. Jay Butler said it was vital to find out if the third dose increased adverse reactions, particularly severe ones. Unfortunately, we're still in the dark. Pfizer's booster application reports on just 329 people with no control data. First, the trial is too small and the enrollment's limited to healthy participants. Second, we really need to know how safe boosters are in people who already had bad reactions to dose 1 or 2. But such people are obviously less likely to volunteer to participate in this trial, so we won't have the data to answer the question. Yet if the booster is approved, such people will surely be mandated to receive a third dose. I'll end with a question. Last week, 3 medical licensing boards said that they could revoke doctors' medical licenses for providing COVID vaccine misinformation. I'm worried about the chilling effect here. There are clearly many remaining unknowns, and science is all about probing unknowns. But in the present supercharged climate, and I'll point out that multiple members of this committee are certified by these boards, I want to ask FDA, what is FDA doing to ensure that those advising it are able to speak freely without fear of reprisal?
For everyone wondering why there are so many of us against the vaccine, maybe there's some of us whose father is actually in the ICU right now, about to have his arm amputated due to so many blood clots in his arm, on top of the double pneumonia, congestive heart failure, a blood clot in his heart, and he may lose both legs due to blood clots. This is a perfectly healthy man who worked this whole garden all season long, plus 2 more that we have. Was consistently working on cars and everything. He gets the vaccine, his energy is cut in half. And for the past month, he has basically been fighting for his life. So before you come after an unvaccinated person, think about what you're saying. Some of us have done our research. Some of us have to live with this every day. Because right now, doctors don't know if my dad's gonna fucking make it.
No, it's real life. It's deadly serious.
How cool's that?
Please get ready to collide on the left.
Hey guys, I just got my 79th booster shot, so I'm a little out of it. I'm just relaxing, but fortunately I don't have to work tomorrow because I haven't had a job in 16 years. So I'm just hanging out here in quarantine camp. I was arrested and thrown in here last week for sneezing near a baby who has a 0.000034 chance of getting COVID. So we're just locked down in the new Tupac variant, but it is good to finally see a diverse variant, right? Finally some black representation in these variants. But anyways, Lord Fauci says we'll be out of this in the next 30 years if we just stay strong. So let's recite the COVID prayer. Do the right thing, do the right thing, do the right thing.
Thank you, everyone. Just that center shot, if you don't mind.
There's no view there, man.
That's great. That's great. That's perfect. Right there, please.
Thanks, folks. Let's reset downstairs. Thank you. We're going to reset. Elevators are this way. Thanks so much, everyone.
We don't have an exit, so we can just out of this minute.
Behind you.
If there really was this effort to wipe out the low IQs and all that stuff, I look at these people who I describe as being in a cult. They believe whatever's on the TV. They don't do any independent research. CNN actually, there's an article about not doing research, saying, don't do research. I'm not kidding, I tweeted it out.
Even the I read from your tweet, but even the New York Times had an article about it's dangerous to do research.
So if you were a despot who wanted to cleanse humanity and only the intelligent people would carry on, which group would that be? The people who believe whatever they're told and don't investigate, or the critical thinkers challenging the system?
And that's what they really, that's
Red Wings opening up camp. Tyler Bertuzzi talked openly about his decision not to get the COVID-19 vaccine. He won't be able to play in games in Canada. He said he likely will not change his mind.
Just personal choice, freedom of choice, and a life choice. At the end of the day, it was a life decision, personal choice, and I made it.
Hello, folks. I'm Congressman Paul Gosar from Arizona. I'm sure by now many of you have seen the shocking Project Veritas video exposing the medical staff at the Phoenix Indian Medical Center, admitting that they do not report side effects, injuries, and illnesses caused by the COVID vaccine. Federal law requires all hospitals and healthcare providers to report adverse vaccine events to the Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System, also known as VAERS. This system does two things. One, the FDA and CDC can monitor the potential risks to the public health by seeing firsthand these problems. If a vaccine causes too many injuries, the vaccine can be pulled off the market. This has happened before. Secondly, it allows an injured patient and their family the ability to file a claim for compensation with a federal compensation fund. This is a legal right, and it is time sensitive like all legal claims. After seeing this miscarriage of justice and the medical negligence documented by Project Veritas, I immediately wrote to the Secretary of Health and Human Services to investigate this matter and to remedy the problem immediately. Look, I'm not pro-vaccine, I'm not anti-vaccine. I am pro-patient choice and informed consent, and I am pro-truth and transparency. The American public is not protected by healthcare providers deliberately lying or withholding evidence they don't like. Thank you, Project Veritas, for your work. America thanks you as well.
As a lot of people are guilty of cross-contamination by placing their masks on a surface. Thank you.
Don't forget the microphone. You touched it.
I'm not afraid of COVID. I'm more afraid of the biologics. All right, so my name is Kristen Megan Kelly. I reside in Hudsonville. I'm here today representing a lot of my neighbors and friends who have children at this school. I can confidently say I am the only subject matter expert in this room. You've heard from a pediatrician, you've heard from healthcare workers. I am the only subject matter expert in this room to speak on masks. I applaud the parents who've done their due diligence. I'm going to tell you a little bit of my background. I have spent the past 19 years working in the field of occupational and environmental toxicology as a senior industrial hygienist. I am cross-credentialed in public health, decontamination site management. I've had an infection control and prevention committees, infection disease committees in hospitals. In fact, hospitals cannot be built like if you have new construction, because I spent most of my career in healthcare. They cannot build a building without consulting with an industrial hygienist. Why? I'm going to explain that. So you have to understand my frustrations. I'm glad it went last because then I can address some of the fear that I'm hearing and the misinformation. I'm going to give you some credit for the fact that you haven't heard of my profession, most likely, because the media has the MDs and the DOs and the nurses on TV. They are skilled. They treat people. I protect people. And I train those doctors that are on TV, and they are not telling you the truth. The doctors that are telling you the truth, by the way, are here in town. The frontline doctors, neurologists, pediatricians, the ones I work with around the country are here this weekend at an event. And we are trying to let all the superintendents know, all the staff know. I understand you've been led wrong. This is not political for me. I'm a military veteran. I spent 9 years in the Air Force working in bioenvironmental engineering. Those burn pits you heard of, we air sampled them. 9/11, we air sampled them. Tell me why now, during every previous pandemic, my profession has been involved with air sampling and doing risk mitigation, selecting the controls. Why were we ignored during COVID? That's right, because this is not about the health and safety. That's not my opinion, that is fact. Because the fact is, every single mask that someone has on this roof has 0% efficacy. The reason I know that is because I am a court-credentialed expert. I have been on countless court cases over the past year, and I've won every single one in favor of doctors I've defended, military people, you name it. Teachers suing their employers. I've protected them, and we've won every case because the science is on my side. So please write this down. Everybody write this down. Go on YouTube and look up Petty Podcast. Petty, Stephen Petty is a mentor of mine. He's the highest credentialed industrial hygienist in my field. I'm trying to get you to understand that masks do not work. We must follow something called the hierarchy of controls. It's a little upside down pyramid.
We can kind of almost see the end. We're vaccinating so very fast. Our data from the CDC today suggests, that vaccinated people do not carry the virus, don't get sick.
If you're vaccinated, even if you do catch the virus, quote unquote, like people talk about it in normal terms, you're an overwhelming. Not many people do. If you do, you're not likely to get sick. You're probably going to be symptomless. You're not going to be. The vaccines are effective. They're effective against the variants.
And third, vaccine effectiveness is generally decreased against the Delta variant.
That any virus, including the Delta virus, which is much more transmissible and more deadly in terms of unvaccinated people, the various shots that people are getting now cover that. You're okay. You're not going to get COVID if you have these vaccinations.
Decision at some point why the U.S. government, why the CDC isn't collecting and publishing data on breakthrough cases aside from hospitalizations and deaths.
If you're vaccinated, you're not going to be hospitalized. Only a small fraction of people going to the hospital today are those who have been vaccinated.
There are breakthrough cases all over the place.
Yeah, there are breakthrough cases.
Do you expect that the vaccine will be like a flu vaccine, meaning you'll have to get a new shot every year?
I'm not so sure it'll be every year, but I would be surprised if it gave lifelong immunity the way the measles vaccine does.
First, vaccine-induced protection against SARS-CoV-2 infection begins to decrease over time.
The plan is for every adult to get a booster shot 8 months after you got your second shot.
How worried are you that new vaccine will keep up with all this?
That's an excellent question and an excellent point, Judy. And one of the best ways to prevent the further evolution of mutants is to get as many people vaccinated as quickly as possible. And the reason is viruses don't mutate unless they actively replicate. So do
you have any explanation for why the numbers on Israel continue to look worse? They're now at the highest level of cases that they have ever been in any surge for a population that's 80% vaccinated and has administered the most booster shots. How do you explain that? And what can we learn from that so we don't follow that path as we have been following in this trajectory of the disease?
When you have such a fully vaccinated portion of your population, you will get breakthrough infections because of the reason I just mentioned. The vaccines are not 100%.
Nash.